Honestly, this game is infinitely funnier if you just shoot your way through every mission and then just pretend the only reason people say you're the top assassin in the world is because they're afraid to say otherwise. So what with IOI being about to fart Hitman 3 onto consoles soon, I figured it was as good a time as any to take a look back at some of the older games. I was going to review Hitman Blood Money, but, well, I couldn't get into it, and that's partly on me since I played all the new ones first, so it's hard to jump back to the older games since the controls are wildly different between Blood Money and Absolution, and they really haven't changed much since then, so I'll have to jump back into Blood Money once I'm out of practice, so to speak. So Hitman Absolution is kind of a weird one for me. I wouldn't really call myself a fan of the series, but I do enjoy the games. I played through the reboot and its sequel multiple times, and I actually have a weird attachment to the dull-as-dishwater Agent 47, but I can't say I had much investment in the story or anything like that. Absolution, on the other hand, is, well, actually, it's exactly the same. See, this particular adventure has an almost identical plot to the later Hitman 2016, which may have been the point considering 2016 is what we in the business call a soft reboot. Essentially, the assassin-for-hire organization that 47 is a part of can no longer be trusted to only murder people they're getting paid to murder, so Agent 47 goes into hiding in order to weed out the bad apples. And his way of going into hiding is by cutting off a very small portion of the telltale barcode on his head and only kinda cover it up with a band-aid. I feel like a wig would have been infinitely more effective, but then what do I know, I'm just a guy, not a professional killer for hire. I'm just saying it would have added a lot to this character to be rocking a mullet the entire time. There's also this young girl who I guess is some kind of genetically engineered perfect killer, but who slowly dies if you're able to remove her necklace. Apparently she was made by the same people who made 47, but I can't help but feel like they got it right the first time around. I'm just going out on a limb here, but if I was gonna hire one of these two to ruthlessly erase my fellow man, I know which one I would be more likely to hire. So anyway, if you've ever played a Hitman game, you kinda know what's coming. A tour of miscellaneous locations, all being guarded by people who have a hard time telling each other apart at a glance, provided they're all wearing the right hat, and a lot of bludgeoning, stabbing, shooting, strangling, and choking unwitting security guards just trying to make a living, stealing their clothes and dropping them in the nearest receptacle. It's a lot like Friday night at the Caligula household. There's an interesting mechanic where you actually have a score counter up in the corner of the screen, and things like subduing or killing a non-target NPC, getting spotted, or ending up in combat will cause your score to drop, but you can cancel out these drops by hiding bodies, reaching checkpoints unnoticed, and completing side objectives like gathering collectibles or taking out targets in creative ways without being seen. I can't think of a way that makes sense in the meta for this counter to exist, and neither could the developers apparently, because there really isn't one. A character in-game literally refers to it as a score based on your gameplay, so I think they just kind of gave up on trying to explain it in any way that makes sense in the context of the actual world and went with the because I said so approach. Personally, I like to pretend 47 has a highly specific form of OCD, and the numbers ticking down is indicative of him having anxiety over things not being done correctly. Missions generally follow the same pattern. You load in, have to sneak past guards to point A, then to point B, then point C, and then you have 1 to 3 targets to take out, sometimes spread across 1 or 2 more locations, and then finally you have to sneak back out. It's pretty much the same each time, but it works, and there's enough variations of the formula and 1 or 2 levels that shy away from it entirely to keep it from getting boring. There really is a huge amount of replay value in this game if you end up enjoying the gameplay as much as I do, mostly on merit of there being a staggering number of ways that you can complete each objective. Mostly. See, some levels are so obtuse and the number of guards in each area is so dense that you're likely to find one specific pattern that works for you if you do it just right, and every other way you try leads to a very quick and unceremonious failure. It's frankly embarrassing the number of times I would make it 3/4 of the way through a stage, only to get spotted by a guy 4 rooms and 3 corners away because he noticed the glint of my bald head in the reflection of the tears of a passing housefly by way of the shine off of the spoon of someone eating some oatmeal in a totally different building. So you heave a little sigh and stand up into the hail of gunfire, because somehow that's more dignified to go down like that than to manually reset the checkpoint, and then you zone out during the loading screen and ask yourself what else you could have been doing with your time, rather than walking down the same hallway 136 times for no real-world benefit, then forget all about your mini-existential crisis and hop right into attempt 137 because this game came out before it was normal for load times to outlast your average English monarch. A true story. I actually hit start on the main menu and then started my usual routine of pulling up a podcast to listen to during load times, and before my phone had even unlocked, the game had started, and I was so surprised I thought I had done something wrong. As for the characters, they're all they're okay. 47 is basically an Easter Island head in a suit, and he doesn't get a whole lot of characterization other than the occasional glimmer of humanity he lets shine through whenever he's dealing with his handler or the young girl I mentioned before. The girl herself doesn't get a whole lot of characterization either. She's largely quiet and spends most of the game off screen, getting rescued by 47 or hidden away from the two bad guys, or being traded back and forth between them until she freaks out and kills a bunch of heavily armed, heavily trained soldiers, and then she never does anything like that again. There's also the leather fetish nuns, who feature more heavily in the trailer than they do in the actual game. They just kind of show up for one mission, you take them all out, and that's kind of the end of it. There's also a couple of mini-boss bad guys who are just kind of there for the purpose of padding gameplay length. They don't really do anything leading up to their missions, and once they're dead, and you don't really hear anything or have any ramifications from them having died afterwards. So they're just kind of pop in and out. But, the missions that they're in are honestly some of the best in the game, so I can't say I'm mad about them being there. I kind of like the two main villains, although one of them gets taken out in a cutscene, which takes a lot of the satisfaction out of it. Also, they both have sexy lady sidekicks, and for some bizarre reason, they made the stages where you take them out infinitely more interesting than the ones targeting the head honchos. Agent 47, an equal opportunity murderer. But you don't eat trail mix for the raisins, and you don't play Hitman for the characters. And if you're okay with most of the characters having the personality of a damp sheet, I really think you'll enjoy this game. I really did get into it on a gameplay level quite a bit. There's a lot on offer here. There's no time limit or anything like that on the missions. Your score is largely based on how well you do in the stealth sections. So it's a game that really rewards patience. And with most games being fast-paced shoot-'em-ups, I really enjoyed that. It was a nice break from the frantic pace that I usually get from gaming these days. Yeah, there's gonna be a lot of points where you get frustrated and can't seem to figure out exactly what you're supposed to do in order to achieve an objective, but it makes it really satisfying when you finally figure it out, and even more satisfying when you make it there flawlessly without ever being seen. It's especially fun to go back to levels that you'd previously completed and just look at all the different options you had that you didn't even notice were there your first time through. In fact, even the points where you're just doing recon and following a target around to see what their pattern is remarkably immersive. Especially in the levels where there's multiple targets and you can take them out in any order. I found myself having a lot of fun just tracking down each target, figuring out when they're isolated from the group and when the best time to strike would be and where and how and with what. And then once I had my plan together, when it all came together, it was really satisfying. When it all came together. It didn't always work. Sometimes some random happenstance or by a guard that I didn't account for turning around, I'd end up getting caught halfway through and then my whole plan would get blown up. But when it did work, that it was nice. It made me feel smart. I like feeling smart. And honestly, any game that can make watching someone walk in a circle for 2 hours fun is pretty good in my book. Overall, I like this game. Even though it's a bit older, it held up really well graphically. Okay, not really well. I mean, lip syncing is atrocious, but lip syncing is atrocious in some games that come out today, so really I can't fault it for that. And I didn't run into any glitches or crashes at all for my entire playthrough, which again is more than I can say for a lot of games that come out nowadays. Stealth feels good, and combat is satisfying for the approximately 7 seconds it lasts before every molecule in your body is replaced with bullets. As I said before, it's a game with extremely high replay value, with a caveat. See, there's some instances in-game where I've only found one way to complete an objective with any measure of consistency. Usually I'm a committed mid-difficulty man, given that I usually find easy modes to not be challenging enough, and I don't usually play hard mode because I actually like to be able to complete a game once in a while. That said, this is one of the few games I recommend playing on easy for your first time through. You'll get a good feel for the mechanics and which methods work best for you in each level, and then you can ramp up the difficulty as you go back and replay stages. There's also a huge number of secrets and Easter eggs to find, and they're significantly more fun to find on easier levels since you have to worry slightly less about getting spotted hanging around waiting for an event to trigger. So yeah, that's Hitman Absolution. It's a lot better than I had expected, and I've been enjoying replaying all the different stages and trying out all the listed challenges and uncovering all the secrets. In fact, I usually take a lot of notes when I play games I intend to review, and I actually forgot to take any at all during my first run because I was so into it. I think the biggest barrier to entry right now is the price. Currently on PS4 it's bundled with Hitman Blood Money, but it's still almost the same cost as a modern AAA game, and this seems to be a pattern for IOI considering they still haven't dropped the price of Hitman 2016 or Hitman 2, despite neither of them technically being full games. If you can find Absolution on sale or have it sitting on a shelf somewhere gathering dust, I highly recommend giving it a shot. No pun intended. Thanks for watching. See you next time. Hey, me again. Thanks for stopping by. I hope you enjoyed it. If you did, please subscribe and drop a like. And if you have anything you'd like me to review, whether it's a movie or a game or anything else, just drop it in the comments and I'll take a look at it. I'm still figuring out what I'm going to review this coming week, and I like to be able to jump right into my next review as soon as I'm done recording the one I'm working on. It just keeps my workflow uncluttered and keeps me together more or less. So anyway, like I said, thanks for stopping by. I really hope you enjoyed the video. If you did, drop a like or a comment and subscribe for more, and I'll see you guys soon.